back to Requesting Good Company. This is our fourth installment of our career highlight, where we highlight careers so that you, the viewers, could look at different opportunities.
Today, we interviewed two of our coworkers, and both of them were in the military.
We interviewed Christopher Curie, who is a drill sergeant in the Army.
And I interviewed Richard Viglione, who was in the Navy.
This is a great opportunity for us to highlight our military branches. This is just two out of many branches. And we're excited for you to see what we have in store.
Dang, I should have shaved.
Done shaving, man. I got my official letter yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
I opened it up. It was weird because most of the stuff they send you is all folded up in a letter, but it's in an envelope.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what's this? And then it says right on the heading, it says Commanding Officer, Navy Personnel Command. So that's like an admiral. Like anytime somebody that big sends you a letter, it's like they're lackeys, and they're like, "We need you to come in and sign this or that,
right.
or whatever." You're usually in some kind of trouble, but it was like, you are entitled to reference such and such. You can start drawing at such and such an age, and I'm like, wow, man, I'm retired. It's official.
Yeah. Welcome back to Requesting Good Company. I am KT, and I am interviewing
Richard Viglione.
And this is about the military, okay? He spent half his life in the military. How many years?
23 years.
23 years in the military, okay?
So half is about right.
Yeah. So, the first question that I'm gonna ask you is, you just retired from the military, right?
I did.
Yeah? And how does that feel?
Strange.
Feels strange?
Very strange. When you do something for 23 years, it kind of defines you.
Yeah.
Right. And then part of it's just habit. My active duty time is about 8 years, but those are all like really exciting years. Like I wasn't in the rear with the gear. I was going places, doing things.
Yeah.
Month after month, year after year. So you got like 8 years of that experience to draw on. But then when you do the 1 week in a month thing, you also have 4-day evolutions, 5-day evolutions, 2-week, 3-week, 4-week evolutions. So in between those, you're balancing your civilian job. And then if you've got any level of responsibility, if you go up in the ranks, you got other people that you're responsible for, that they got all the information, they know where they're going, what they're doing. And it's more than, everybody says 1 week in a month, but I mean, when I was in a command position, or had a position with the command, because I'm not a big high-ranking guy, but typically I was responsible for anywhere. It just depends on what I was assigned, what I was tasked with. It could be 5 people, typically about 12 to 20 people, or it could be I had like a training position for a while where I was pushing out to 500 people information. But generally I'm dealing with between 5 or 12 subordinates. But they have to know everything you know.
Right.
So you've got to filter that information, and you're constantly responding to emails. And if you push stuff out, to people, you know what's going on in their personal life. They might not reply. And then your boss is like, what's going on with this? What's going on with this? What's
Right.
going on? And giving you deadlines and stuff that you can't meet because you can't control other people. They're in the civilian world. You can't just go snatch them up.
Right.
But when you're on active duty, you can. You go to their house.
Right.
Hey man,
what's going on?
Come on in. Yeah, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
So it's different. But I'm not sure if that really answers your question about it being weird. Well, when you do that for 23 years, the idea that I'm never going to have to do it again is just weird. Feels strange.
Right. So what was your title and your rank?
So my title is Petty Officer First Class, which is, depending on the community in the Navy, so it's like a staff sergeant in the Marines or the Army. It's a staff non-commissioned officer. When I did the Navy Expeditionary world is set up a lot. It mirrors the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
So Army soldiers are more familiar with our structure than Navy sailors are typically. So it's like a squad leader position. The next level up would be platoon commander, which is what I always did.
Okay.
I always had like a platoon size, responsibility for the last however many years.
Okay. So going back 23
like a sergeant
years.
First Class.
So going back 23 years, do you remember what made you want to get into the military?
Absolutely. That's the weird thing because I was a little kid. So I remember that more clearly than I remember some of the things like, sometimes like I just had this reunion. It's kind of off topic, but I just had this reunion. I haven't seen these guys, the platoon I went to war with the first time, right after the invasion. So I haven't seen these guys since like 2006.
Right.
Some of them, right? They just went their separate ways. Some of them got out. Some of them went to other commands. One guy went to the Army, took a commission, became a captain. My boss did. So I haven't seen these guys in years and years and years. Yeah, so they'll be bringing up stuff that happened in the war, and I'll be like, I don't remember that. Right? I absolutely do not remember that happening at all. But I'll remember shit from when I was in boot camp.
Right.
Right? Or when I was a little kid, and I was like, I want to join the Navy. Like, I remember that very clearly. Boot camp's just... can never forget boot camp.
Right.
That was 1986.
Right. So what made you like, you know what? Out of everything, why the Navy?
Yeah. I grew up in, there's a couple things with that. So it was a Navy family.
Okay.
So I got the CV, patch on. I'm named after one of the first World War II Navy CVs. So during World War II, when they were talking about, D-Day and all that, and they were starting the CVs for the invasion. One of the guys, that volunteered, I'm named after that guy. So World War II, and then my grandfather, my great uncles, they were all sailors and Marines. So when I was a little kid, you got to remember like this. So this little kid, we're talking late 70s, early 80s. Nobody back then had tattoos.
Right.
Like like bikers and that's it. And sailors and Marines. So I remember seeing like the anchor on the forearm, and going, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Right. So when I graduated from boot camp, like I already had it drawn up. Like I was going to the tattoo parlor. I was 18 years old. I was gonna get a tattoo.
Exactly.
All that stuff came later. The rock bands and the college kids, that wasn't a thing yet.
So what are some advantages do you think?
But the military, that's easy.
Yeah, advantages.
Pay for my education. I don't have student loans. So that's, we all have college degrees, what we do.
Right.
I don't have any student loans. And I know how bad that, how much that hurts people, especially when you're like doing like public service, like we already not making a lot of money. Or there's no cheap education. Doesn't mean you're gonna there's no guarantee you're gonna make a big paycheck or big salary.
Right.
But
I'm saying, degree,
you get that degree, and it helps you in your military career too, because when they see education, they see someone that can apply themselves and is self-disciplined.
Right.
A lot of people in the military have discipline because it's consequences. I got to do this or I'm gonna get in trouble.
Right.
Not I got to do this to make myself better. That's,
right.
We college graduates are that way. So I got that from the Navy. I think I got it paid for anyway, and built my resume too. So what you would call it MOS, and the Navy's called it NEC, and I have the police NEC. I've got that. It's 9545, which is force protection. So it's like a police officer. That kind of
Okay.
I got into private security as soon as while I was still in, I was doing contract armed security.
So you was an MP while you were in?
They don't really call them MPs. It's called Master at Arms, MAs,
okay.
which is they have police battalions. But no, I have the NEC because the tactical training that we had to have to do. It's a kind of a, I don't know if it's off topic or not. I was in gun truck platoons. So a gun truck platoon in an expeditionary unit does. Remember Schmidt talking about scouts, like Army always talks about. So it's a scout, right? So you're locking stuff down. Anytime you're locking stuff down, whether it's a neighborhood, whether it's a stretch of road where you're going to build a bridge or a runway or whatever the Navy needs, like a ramp for boats or whatever. Whenever you got to lock stuff down, you set yourself on the perimeter. Right. Trucks go into place and patrols start happening. And the training that you get for that to run those mobile weapons platforms, to run all those foot patrols. I mean, they just give you the NEC for military police.
Right. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So what are some disadvantages that you would take away?
Disadvantages. It's not like, so I didn't meet my wife till I was 40. My first marriage is a divorce. My second relationship
So was your first marriage in the military?
Yeah, on active duty. Yeah, so she went overseas with me for about 8 months. My first duty station. She was like, she was so she wanted to go see the world.
Mm-hmm.
Until we got to another country.
Until you got in the world.
Yeah, until I got in the world. She was like, Mama.
Right.
So she had to go back to the States. I mean, she just couldn't deal with the culture shock.
Yeah.
It was,
I bet it was a big culture
There's no fast food. There's no,
right.
You grew up in Europe, didn't you?
Nah,
Germany?
No.
I thought maybe you did because I know your dad.
He went to Germany. Yeah.
You did go to Germany.
Nah, he went to Germany before
before you were around.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the disadvantage. If you're trying to start a family, they'll send you to the other side of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just takes a certain kind of woman that's like going to hold it down while you're off doing stuff. And so a lot of what I saw and dealt with in my troops was broken relationships. Like
right.
They don't know who's in the house with their kids. They don't know. I mean, they sometimes they get married for all the wrong reasons. Because they're young or whatever.
Right.
You know how it is. It just doesn't last. It doesn't last. It's not like you can grow up together. You're on the other side of the planet, and she's 22 years old, going out with her girlfriends.
Yeah.
So yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of divorce. That's a disadvantage. When you do have a good, like, I deployed, my last deployment was 2016. So Courtney and I had been together for a while, and I was 47. And it was stressful for her. Because, like, if you're used to having somebody there all the time, and then all of a sudden, you got to pick up all their slack.
Right.
There's nobody's going to help you with the laundry. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody to pick the kids up from school. It's just you. So a lot of women or spouses, even if they're men, right? When everything just is on them, they're just like,
It's hard.
It's hard. They don't hold up. Some of them don't hold up.
So what was your favorite, could you tell us about your favorite missions or your favorite part of the military?
Some things to this day, I mean, like I could
NDAs.
not talk about. I really could not talk about it because it's like, Uncle Sam does some stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Know.
When you're involved in operations like that, whether it's just, building a base or, moving people around or whatever it is you're doing, and that's the end result, you're not supposed to talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But so there was those missions. The Horn of Africa was pretty much like we're building support in the region because a lot of people in the Middle East don't like us. So it's that part of Africa right underneath Somalia, Egypt, right? That's right there. You could hit Yemen with a rock from where we are. We would go to Kenya or places that are really rich in resources. Yeah. It's not. Like Europe, you go to country is pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm.
Africa, there are places in Africa that it's just 150 degrees. It's a very unforgiving environment, right? Then the way that we look at it is we got friends in the region.
Right.
Which instead of people trying to attack us all the time, right?
Right.
We have friends in the region. And it doesn't hurt that that they let us stay there not far to where we can reach out.
Right.
You don't have to be in Iraq. You just go back to Africa, man, and drink a frappuccino and play some.
Right, play some cornhole.
That's exactly. Play some chess and some cornhole, shooting some pool.
Right.
Meanwhile, when it's time to reach out, it's just like, bam, go back.
And they're like, where they come from?
Go back to the house.
Right.
So
go back to the house.
It's a lot different than being in a place like Afghanistan or Iraq, where not only is the environment unforgiving, but the enemy can reach out and touch you and will and tries every day. So it's a good relationship between the countries in that region and us, and that we help them out, and then we're a little more safe, and they feel protected.
So you got 23 years in the military.
Yep.
What is so if someone came up to you and was like, yeah, I'm joining the military, what are some things that you can tell me to help me along my way?
To get ready for it? Well, one is, it depends. If it's like a young person that's never done anything before, it's a whole different thing.
Fresh out of high school?
Fresh out of high school is a whole different thing than like, you're like what, 30?
32.
32?
Mm-hmm.
So, and college educated, right? So you wouldn't come in as an E1.
Right.
You would come in as an O1. Right? So you're a whole different person. Talking to you about joining the military is a whole different thing than talking to you know, my son about joining the military. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah, but 23 years you was fresh out of high school.
I was fresh out of high school. I didn't know anything.
Right.
I didn't know anything. So what I would tell a young person that wants to do it,
right.
So I think it's a good environment for young people. Like really, you get tons of responsibility, but it's very structured, and there's people always watching, making sure you're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So for a young person, I would just tell them, you know, learn how to, like, it's not going to be your way. It's not Burger King.
Yeah.
It's going to be every way but your way.
Right.
It's going to be every way but your way, and you have to be able to take a little bit of pride and not, you know, not backing down from that. It's, you know, just what we say, embrace the suck. The more it sucks, you know, the harder the task is, the more of a troop you are to accomplish it. Anybody can do something that's easy, right? But when it's hard and it sucks, and you're like, yeah, let's do this. So it gives them character. I think it gives them a lot of character, and it's good for them. But for you know, for a guy who's 30, and you know, if you're going in and you're taking a commission, you're gonna be a manager, right?
Yeah, but I would still have to go.
But you have to go through the training. You got to go through that 9 weeks, right?
Yeah,
in which case they would.
Yeah.
They will test you. They will test you in every way. One of my buddies was a drill instructor, and I was like, man, you can't. He's like, tell me all the things that have changed since we were. He's like, you can't cuss them anymore. What do you mean you can't cuss them? Because you can ask them any question you want, but you can't tell them about themselves.
Oh.
And I'm like, so how does this work? He's like, I can't call you. Can you curse on this? I can't curse on this. Well, I will just say idiot, but you know it's gonna be expletive idiot,
right?
It's gonna be right. I can't say you expletive idiot. I can say, are you an expletive idiot?
Oh, and then they make you feel like,
oh, he's asking me this question.
Yeah,
and then you know, and they just same thing. Like it used to be that anybody could punish you with extra military instruction, which means exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Push up.
Yeah. So when I was coming up, if you're an E1 on the base, right, and an E5, like these are like my subordinates, you know, and most of my career E5s, right?
Yeah.
The guys that work for me, they're like to the E1, that's like a god, right? You don't even talk to them. You don't even talk to them without permission, requesting permission to speak, right?
Yeah.
And if one of them sees you, just like arbitrarily, just like, why are you eyeballing me, recruit? You need to drop. Give me 45 right now, right? And they'll stand over you and just make you. And then it's like you get up, and then you're hoping the next one doesn't drop you.
Right.
But then the next one, and then the next one. But they've changed it now.
Okay.
It's more. So I asked Randy. I was like, so you're telling me that NCOs can't just drop recruits for no reason? He's like, no, but if you ask me, I'll do it for you.
Oh.
he's like, I'm like, you're serious? He's like, yeah. He's like, you know, that one down on your face for him.
Mm-hmm. All right, now going back to the first 9 weeks of the military when you're in. So I've heard that the Air Force gets it the easiest.
I heard that too. I've not
the Army and then like the Marines get it like the worst.
The Marines get it like the worst, and that's just because at one point the Marines was just infantry. They were the Navy's infantry, but after like World War II and the Korean War, they reorganized the Fleet Marine Force so that it started getting more funding. So they opened it up to more job occupational skills and things. So they diversified it more. It was just, but they've always had the saying, every Marine's a rifleman. Right. So they before, like, you know, you got some guy that's like a cook, but he can blow your head off at 300 yards. So right. What is that? You do that cook job to a sailor, like, you know, but that's what they do. Every Marine's rifleman.
Okay. All right. Well, what's your biggest takeaways from the military?
Probably my biggest takeaway from it is when I was doing it is, you know, doing an active duty. Like you guys are at an age where you can't even remember the country before there was a war. Mm-hmm. Like, how old were you when 9/11 happened? Like a little kid, right? Yeah. So your whole life you've been at war. And so before me, it wasn't like that at all, man. Like I grew up in the '80s, right? So we were like, when we were kids, we weren't thinking about war.
Right.
And that was old Korea, and nobody's going to war.
Right.
And then
That
when
was
it happened,
history, so-
yeah, it was history. It was history. And so when it finally happened, you had a lot of guys that just were like, you know what? And I'm talking about state troopers. I'm talking about people. I'm talking about so people that really have what it takes. Going, I shouldn't pick out any particular profession. I mean, when you imagine, EMTs, law enforcement, whoever, saying, you know what, I got a family, I don't need to go over there and do that, right? And I'm not mad at it. I'm not calling names. I'm not saying that they didn't answer the call, but you had to gut check yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had to gut check yourself because we knew who was how many weren't coming back. We knew we had the numbers.
Yeah.
We knew who that it could be anybody's day at any time. So for me, that was the thing. Was the gut check was to say, you know what, I didn't have to do it. I'd been out forever. Like I'd been out forever
Right.
when the war broke out, and that's why even though I went to boot camp in '86, I didn't retire till 2023, right? Because I got out for so long, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went to art school for a semester. But, I was a Teamster. I drove a truck. I was making like double time on Sundays in a union shop, and so when I called when 9/11 happened, I called the recruiter, and he's like, "What are you doing for a living?" I said, I load trucks. I'm a forklift job operator. I was like, I'm in my late 20s or 30ish. And he's like, "Well, you're an equipment operator."
Right.
So that's how I got my job classification.
Okay.
But
So you didn't have to take the ASVAB again?
no, they had all that stuff still. They still had all that. And I had a good reenlistment code. I had honorable discharge, all that. So they just brought me back. But it was like you're an old man at 30,
right?
When you're going into that world. So like I was like they brought me back. They busted me down too. They busted me down to like an E3.
Oh yes, so they took some rank from you.
They took some rank from me, and that was because I wasn't in the Seabees before. So a lot of sailors just have no knowledge of what that world is. It's like it's almost like joining a different branch in the military. So they busted me down one. I had to go to school, and there was all those games like marching and carrying the guide on.
Right.
So I had to do all that, and they would make us exercise like crazy and all that. When you're an equipment operator, you're always in a gravel. You're always in a rock pit, right? And they will bounce rocks off your helmet. They would be like, "Hey, rock," and nobody answers to that, right?
Right.
So they would bounce one off. I'm talking to you, rock.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, petty officer.
Yeah.
Do some exercise until infinity. I'll let you know when that is. Exercise. They'll go smoke a cigarette or something. Trying to get another push up.
See? Oh man.
So, to answer your question, the biggest takeaway for me was like I knew that if I backed down from that fight, that I would go like be old man like I am now. Go, man, I wish I'd done that. I knew I would. I wish I'd done that. So when I get old, like I want to be able to say I did my part.
Right.
So yeah, that's the biggest takeaway for me. Is I did my part.
That's what's
a lot of guys did a lot more than I did.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more than I did.
But you did your
part. I did my part, and that's probably the part that I didn't look at these questions too much. The part that guys don't like talking about is all the guys that you saw and served with that did their part, but they're not here anymore. Mm-hmm. So, or they're not all in one piece. So, yeah. I'm lucky. I'm blessed.
Yeah, gotta respect it. Yeah. All right, so for all of the viewers that are out there, what are some encouraging words that you would give?
The encouraging words I'd give them is, it's not for everybody. It takes kind of like a certain kind of person that likes abuse to want to be in the military.
Mm-hmm.
But you never meet a better group of guys and gals. Some of these female soldiers are just as tough.
Right.
I've seen some. I've seen some women Marines that they're MMA fighters, man.
Yeah.
Like they got long hair. They'll put it in braids. And they'll get in a cage and beat each other.
Right.
And I'm like, that's a Marine.
Right.
So you'll never meet a greater group of people. They'll always have your back, and you form a bond with them. And the weird thing is like, so we're probably all from Kentucky. right? But when you join the military, you're going to serve with people from Alaska, Puerto Rico, Arkansas,
right.
West Virginia mountains, wherever, all walks of life. And then after about 10 to 12 weeks, you're all the same. Like, you're all the same. You don't need your brothers and sisters.
Right.
So that is awesome. And with my unit, they're so tight that, like, I go to a school that's like a Navy-wide school, or to the hospital, Navy-wide, right? And I see somebody else wearing this, and it's like, okay, let's go get a beer.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right.
Just automatically.
You gotta chop it up.
Yep, automatically. So that is great. It's a great group. And the other thing I was going to say for people like, it's good for, it's maybe not my thing, but they love support. Everybody in the military loves support. I don't want people to, say thank you. That's not what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting at, like, if you got a soldier in your family, right? And sometimes it's just like, if you don't see a family member for a year or months, you're thinking, that they're living life just like you are. But sometimes, like, these people are, our fellow Americans are, when you don't see them at Christmas time, they're like in a dirty hole,
Right.
wondering if they're going to wake up.
Right.
Or if a mortar's going to land on their head, or if a sniper's going to hit them. You know what I mean? So when they come home, I'm not saying it needs to be a big deal, but or you need to thank every soldier that you meet, but support, if you can support the troops in any way, and just say welcome home, that means a lot. It means a lot, because when you're out doing the job, you want to know, it feels good to know that somebody gets it.
Right.
They've got some appreciation for what you're doing. Because, again, everybody brings politics into it. When you're a soldier, that does not matter at all. It does not matter, right? You have no say,
right?
You have absolutely no say. You go and you do what you're told to do, right? So whether it's the right war or the wrong war, whether we should have done it a different way, or whether we're throwing money away, or any of that, does not matter to the guy who follows the orders. Got orders to follow.
Right.
So I can say that I don't think there's a soldier alive that doesn't appreciate that support.
That's good. That's good. Well, I just want to say thank you.
Hoorah.
You know what I'm saying? Thank you for your service.
It's a pleasure to serve. We're still serving.
Yes. So, with that being said, we appreciate you all viewing. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments, like, subscribe.